The new Multimedia Encyclopedia program was launched at the inaugural statewide Technology High Schools conference at Glendale Technology High School. Information is stored on a compact disc, which is compatible with most computer systems. Traditionally, encyclopedias have been heavy, multi-volumed editions, and while being a wealth of information, use a lot of space and often a lot of time to search for just the right piece of information. The multimedia system not only solves time and space limitations, but is able to store much more information.
Well, it basically will speed up the ability to learn about various experiences and various facts. The computer-based training allows people to give students the experience of having experiments and working with technology without actually having the real thing.
This means the system gives the student a more practical description and illustration of the subject matter. For example, the entry for dolphins includes an animated sequence illustrating sonar communication. The system certainly looked faster and more interesting than conventional encyclopedias, but to be fair, we put it to the test. The subject, spiderwebs. Are you ready, Roger?
Yes, indeed.
Spiderweb.
Okay, let's
go. Even with the help of a reference index explaining the right volume and page, the computer crossed the finish line way ahead. It also gave us a picture sequence and detailed explanation of the information we were looking for. During the next year, multimedia encyclopedias will begin to appear in New South Wales technology high schools and later in most high schools across the state.
Mr Young told reporters he was satisfied with his company's handling of insurance claims, especially the use of a personally appointed engineer to assess about 90 household damage claims. He was replying to a statement by John Farrington of Bolton Insurance Brokers last week that MAMI was being neither generous nor expeditious in handling its clients' claims. This, he said, was in marked contrast to the behaviour of other insurance companies. Mr Young said today that MAMI must follow sound procedures rather than pay out for the sake of positive publicity. However, Mr Farrington says an independent loss adjuster should be appointed to give his clients confidence that claims procedures will reach a satisfactory conclusion. Mr Young was invited to tonight's public meeting at the Newcastle Masonic Hall at short notice, but he will not be attending. He says he has other responsibilities.
I'll even take 32 and a half. Quickly, nothing against you personally. At where? 32 and a half. Sold. Gentlemen out there, $5. At $10. Where? Sold. $35. What a steal. I get $10 in. 10 and 10 and $10 a bit. I'll take $12.50. All right, $12.50. Thank you. Another 20. At 20. At 20. Okay, the next one is what number? 135 film. 1 trip of...
It was shortly after midday when a masked man burst into Dudley's liquor store and slammed shut the front roller door. Inside, a lone attendant was counting the day's takings. The assailant held a knife to the terrified woman's throat, ordering her to pack the cash into a bag. The robbery almost went without a hitch, but outside a customer hammered on the door. Startled by the intrusion, the man fled through a back storeroom, scattering banknotes as he ran. Police say much of the cash was recovered, but a substantial amount is still missing. Police combed the neighbourhood without success, but they believe it's highly unlikely the offender could have fled unseen.
Well, the unusual thing about it is that it happened on a Saturday morning in a very busy shopping centre about lunchtime, and we've had virtually no witnesses at all, and no one's seen him enter or leave the store.
The man police are looking for is about 190 centimetres tall, of thin build. He was wearing a maroon sloppy joe with white horizontal stripes, blue jeans and a black balaclava. He was carrying a 15-centimetre kitchen knife with a distinctive curved tip. If you can help police, call them now on 008 251 009. There's a reward of up to $1,000 for information leading to an arrest. The number once again is 008 251 009. About 100 people, including a high proportion of MAMI customers, went to the meeting. Bolton Insurance Brokers Principal John Farrington called the gathering, which he said was to reassure his customers that he was seeking a satisfactory resolution to their earthquake damage claims with MAMI.
I wanted this meeting to be an opportunity for my client and others who aren't insured through Bolton to walk away feeling, well, we're not on our own, we now know where we are, and we know down which route we're travelling.
The meeting was a culmination of a brewing difference of opinion between Mr Farrington and MAMI's owner Alex Young. Mr Young has said his insurance company is processing claims to the best of its ability. Mr Farrington says few, if any, of the 100 claims lodged by his clients are proceeding satisfactorily. The meeting elected a committee of 6, including Mr Farrington, to hold discussions with local member Alan Morris and the Department of Business and Consumer Affairs. Those talks were held today. Mr Farrington said they were encouraging.
19-year-old Peter John Starks appeared in Wallsend Court on 25 counts of illegal use of a motor vehicle and 2 of driving in a dangerous manner. His co-defendant, a 16-year-old juvenile, appeared in Warramai Children's Court on 19 similar charges. Starks was arrested yesterday after an operation in which detectives investigated numerous complaints of stolen cars in the Newcastle Police District. It's alleged the defendant stole 25 vehicles with a total value of more than $100,000. 2 were driven into Lake Macquarie, while several others were damaged after joyrides through bushland at Toronto and Fassifern. Both youths were taken into custody after a high-speed police chase in which they lost control of their stolen vehicle and ploughed head-on into a tree. At Wallsend Court today, Magistrate Robert Stent took into account the seriousness and number of offences and formally refused bail. Starks was remanded in custody until June 25. His juvenile co-defendant was also refused bail, with the case adjourned until June 4.
The Federal Government's Financial Information Service for Pensioners, or FISP, began last November, though it was officially launched by Michael Lee, member for Dobell, today. Despite his mere 33 years, Mr Lee says he has a wide understanding of pensioners' problems through his involvement in the Prime Minister's task force on retirement.
I think there's more than 125,000 aged pensioners in this part of New South Wales who can have access to the new service, and that's something which I hope will mean we'll have less people putting money under the bed or in a drawer, and less people putting money in interest-free cheque accounts when they could easily be earning money and not losing any of their pension or any of their fringe benefits.
FISP is a free service for those who receive a social security pension or benefits or a Veterans Affairs pension and those who are planning their retirement. Local advisor Jim Porteous has already helped hundreds with tax queries, investment advice and pension problems.
That's the beauty in this office. It's a one-stop shop where people can get advice on social security matters and tax matters, and people know that it's accurate and unbiased and something that will help them in years to come.
Tennis courts, and I hope the people of Lake Macquarie get a great deal of people.
Eddie Seymour flew back to Newcastle on board an Air Pelican flight late this afternoon. Standing in clothes he borrowed from a wharfie in Macquarie, Mr Seymour recounted the moments before and after the yacht ran aground.
I was asleep in the salon and I heard a big bang or whack, and my first thought was we broached the wave and hit the trough, but halfway through that thought we went bang bang again. I looked out the saloon window, saw the froth, saw the rock, and I knew what had happened. We were in 25 to 30 knot winds from the southeast. The seas were 4 to 6 metres and the visibility was virtually zero. You could virtually see past the front of the boat. It was atrocious.
Meanwhile, a night in Swansea Channel this yachtsman will not forget. On board the 10-metre yacht out to dinner, the unnamed skipper was on his way to Port Stephens from Sydney when the weather turned bad. He made for Swansea Channel but ignored the navigation leads, hit the inner sandbank and was forced high and dry by the low tide. Late this morning, assisted by the police launch Belmont, the yacht was refloated on the high tide, but the drama did not end there. The tow rope got caught in the yacht's propeller, forcing the skipper to climb overboard and dive to cut it free. While he was in the water, it became apparent to everyone but the skipper that the ship's anchor wasn't holding, and the yacht was drifting dangerously close to shore. Rescued once again by the police, who fixed the tow rope to the bow, the yacht was finally on its way north this afternoon. The skipper uninjured and the boat intact despite its encounter with the channel floor. John Church, NBN News.
The community policing scheme is the first of its kind in the state and a direct result of the recent social summit in Lake Macquarie, where a number of problems in the area were identified.
There's large incidents of vandalism, there's youth problems, there's unemployment, there's homeless youth in the area.
With aldermen acting as middlemen, it's hoped relations between police and the community will be improved. Aldermen can gather information from people who choose not to go to police.
Certainly, with their expertise and knowledge that they have, they're going to be a source of information to the police in charge of that particular area.
Aldermen will also benefit from the initiative.
Aldermen will benefit from the first-hand knowledge of the social problems that are existing, and they'll be able to better address those in their aldermanic role.
The program will begin in the next week or so when aldermen join police on night patrol. It's hoped other New South Wales councils may soon adopt the community policing program. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
Car theft here is at a 7-year low according to the NRMA, but the cost per claim has increased.
It means that the number of cars that are being stolen each day is down, but the cost of the parts that are stolen from the cars is certainly up, as far as the vehicles being stripped are concerned.
Regional figures show Gosford as a medium risk area for car stealing, with 55 claims costing the NRMA more than $222,000. Newcastle City was the next highest in the area, with 38 claims costing more than $169,000.
Well, in the report we do state that a lot of cars are being stolen from car parks, and as we've spoken before, that it is a commuter type area, and there's a lot of cars that are parked in the shopping centres, the railway car parks, and it is a big risk area.
Wyong and the Entrance recorded 20 and 28 thefts respectively during 1989, but these are still ranked as low-risk areas. Toukley, Kurri Kurri and Maitland are next on the list, but the NRMA says these figures can be explained.
They are populated areas, and they do have those same shopping centres, they do have those same club car parks, so they're going to be at the same risk as some of the larger towns, but they'll stand out only because of the population zone.
The good news is that Newcastle has the lowest cost per claim in New South Wales, with just $10 of the premium going to offset the risk of car theft. This compares with $69 per policy in Sydney. Despite this favourable figure, a drop in premiums is unlikely, as insurance companies are still reeling from hailstorm, flooding and earthquake claims. John Church, NBN News.
Just like their artist name, Lister Lister, these paintings are going around a second time. The recently restored collection, owned by Shortland Electricity, is on permanent loan to the Newcastle Region Gallery. Many people might remember some of these pastoral scenes and seascapes adorning the halls of the old Nesca building in Newcastle's King Street. When Shortland Electricity moved to its Wallsend office, the paintings were consigned to storage. Exposure to sunlight and humidity had robbed many of the 90-year-old works of their vibrance, but since being restored, the paintings once again evoke their original charm and freshness.
They're a collection of very traditional Australian watercolours, which are very popular with people because they're simple Australian landscapes and seascapes.
In the 1900s, William Lister Lister was regarded as one of Australia's best landscape artists. Other examples of his work hang in the Newcastle City Council chambers. The exhibition continues for the next 6 weeks at the Newcastle Permanent Building Society's head office before going back under wraps. It's hoped the collection will tour the Hunter for future showings.
The plight of victims of violent crime was the subject of a national conference last week in Melbourne. As the campaign for victims' rights gains momentum, another voice has emerged, claiming a raw deal from the criminal justice system. This Maitland man responded to last night's NBN News story on the Newcastle-based Justice for Victims of Violence Association, with claims that he's a victim from the other side of the coin.
I was falsely accused of assault and sexual assault.
This man asked to remain anonymous to avoid inflaming the already considerable pressure he and his wife are under. All the same, he's anxious to publicise the case of the falsely accused.
The system is not set up to protect the public. For those who are falsely accused, you go through the same trauma, stress and financial burden as those who are victims. Someone who is falsely accused has no left to their own resources.
After a year-long court battle, he's $4,000 out of pocket. On a take-home pay of $280 a week, that represents a giant hurdle. His cries of innocence were vindicated last week when a jury returned a not guilty verdict on both the sexual assault and assault matters. His wife of 5 months never doubted his innocence, but while the court's verdict may have justified her faith, she remains bitter over the way things have turned out.
Oh, definitely a lot of bitterness towards the system. It's just not fair. You know, we can't recuperate any of our costs. There's nothing there for us, yet there's everything there for the victims.
I would say anyone who's falsely accused is a victim of crime. I think everyone's entitled, and the law states that you are innocent until proven guilty, but that doesn't exist anymore.
The report, prepared by the Public Works Department, details the extent of earthquake damage to state-owned buildings. That damage ranges from superficial cracking to serious structural failure. Of the buildings damaged in some way, surprisingly few will be demolished.
When we added it up, there's a total of something of the order of 310 government buildings that are affected by the earthquake in one way or another. And really, when you stop to think about it, that's a large number of government buildings.
The Department of Health has the greatest damage bill of $29 million. That includes $7 million at Royal Newcastle and $5.5 million at the Mater. The TAFE College at Tyers Hill was among the worst hit by the earthquake. Damage to that department's buildings will top $27 million. The Department of Education is next on the list, with the total cost of repairs estimated at $13.5 million. $3 million of that will be spent at the Junction Public School, which bore the brunt of the December 28 tremor. The cost of the repairs will be met by the state government's managed fund and federal funding on a dollar-for-dollar basis. It'll take 2 years to finish the work, which will be carried out according to a new post-earthquake building code.
The Public Works Department, as a responsible constructing authority, has looked at what needs to be done in repairing these buildings to obviously make them safe for the next earthquake. The Institute of Engineers, which is, I guess, probably the appropriate professional body, has been looking very carefully at what needs to be done and what codes need to be now set for Newcastle as a result of the experience of this earthquake.
The plot is simple. Chris Palmer comes down from Taree to try out for the Knights, setting himself up in a former school friend's inner suburban uni student share household. Chris isn't doing so well, so he concocts a plan to headbutt an opponent to make himself more conspicuous. But things go wrong. To find out how, you'll just have to buy a ticket and go along. But why a show about rugby league?
There's always plays about coal mining and steel in Newcastle, so why not about football? Because it's a really big thing now in Newcastle with the Knights here and everything. So the inspiration came from that and my own background.
And you've turned it into what, a musical or a play or a bit of both? Or?
It's a bit of both, yeah. I like to think of it as a suburban opera.
Is it a first ever suburban opera?
I think so. There's been suburban plays and there's been operas, but there's never been a suburban opera.
In all, there are 11 songs, apart from Ken Palmer, former hooker for Norths, from Chris's former footballing father, who visits for his son's 21st birthday weekend.
I co-wrote some with Glenn Butcher, who's also in the Castanet Club, and he's the musical director on the show. There's 11, yeah, I made them all up, the music and the words.
Are they good?
I think they're fantastic.
Playwright Stephen Abbott now resides in Bondi with famous wife Angela Moore, alias Shirley Purvis, but spent 8 years in Newcastle before leaving to tour with our homegrown castanets. Stephen has structured the Headbutt along castanet lines, but to have broad appeal.
There's a lot of, charming theatrical devices, and for the sports person there's lots of football references and sporting references, and there's no dirty words in it, so I mean, Christians, old people, young kids could enjoy this show.
While opening night clashes with the league telecast from Melbourne, there'll be plenty of opportunity for everyone to see the show. It's on at the Civic Playhouse until the 23rd of June.
Counting the cost of a late-night break-in. It was a miserable start to Graham Boyd's day, but he's not the only victim. 3 motorcycle stores have been burgled under similar circumstances over the last 48 hours.
They've kicked the glass straight in and come running in, grabbed a heap of helmets and a heap of boots because they're easy to grab and run.
Bryson Cycles was broken into around 1 o'clock on Tuesday morning when thieves threw a brick through the front window before making off with leather jackets and safety helmets worth almost $2,500. 3 hours later it was Jesmond Motorcycles, where a window was again smashed and jackets and helmets worth $1,400 were stolen. Last night it was the Sports Cycle Centre, where boots and helmets worth more than $3,000 were taken.
They're cheap and easy to get rid of, and they've had a couple of successes at other shops, so I think they're just doing the rounds.
Police say there's little doubt the same people are responsible for all 3 incidents.
That it's definitely the same group that's doing the 3 break and enters. There's the same MO. They've used smashed the window and then grabbed what they could out of the window and then done a quick escape to get away with the goods. All the people should be aware if they get offered any helmets or leathers of any description or boots to contact the police, because the property's a good chance of being stolen.